Kareem Tincup, welcome to Rebels with a Heart. You are a rebel with a heart that I know and love, and I'm really happy that you joined us on the show today. So welcome, my friend.
I'm extremely happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Derek.
No, absolutely. So obviously you are a well-known name and presence in the HR community and HR tech space, but for those who may not already know you, tell us a little bit about you, your work, your story, wherever feels relevant. We'll kind of start there.
Sure. I came to HR and recruiting kind of in a weird way, like a lot of folks. They end up like in marketing. You end up in marketing. You end up in HR. But I first started an ad agency, and in doing so, our clients were vendors selling to HR and recruiting, and I was the kind of the partner that did all the HR and recruiting. And so I don't know, just over a course of time, I fell more and more in love with HR and recruiting, and just had a great opportunity to exit that business. And in doing so, it gave me some time to actually really focus on HR. And then what I did the first out of the agency is I did user adoption consulting, because that was my kind of a passion that I had. Was you've sold the software. Okay, now how do you get people to use the software? How do you get people to fall in love with it? And so I did that for a number of years. And then I did market research. I started a market research company with a partner, and we studied implementations and vendor software selection and user adoption, a bunch of other things. And again, always kind of speaking to HR. I became certified 2 different ways in HR, and then moved to RecruitingDaily to learn media and set up an events and training business. And I don't know, I like the full spectrum, all the way from sourcing to outplacement. So there isn't a kind of a crevice of HR that I don't like, and that I don't see where there's some innovation happening. So it's even though I interact with all of the vendors, I still talk mostly to HR and recruiters.
Yeah. So a question on that. So what does it mean? Obviously, you mentioned the different areas of the HR life cycle and that you like it. And I appreciate the diversity of your interests and skills. But at the core, what is it that you, quote unquote, love about HR? Like, what is it that really just attracts you to it? I mean, it's
Optimism. Optimism. It's interesting because once you dig into HR, you understand that they know the secrets. They know all the secrets. They know the pay inequities. They know sexual harassment claims, investigations. They know, who's being sued. They know everything. And even knowing all of the kind of the dark crevices of an organization, they're still hopeful. By and large, they're still, when you pull HR people aside, and they're optimistic about their company, about their culture, about their leadership team. They're optimistic, whereas they very easily could be pessimistic, or cynical, and they're not. And I love that, because that's not me. It's like I'm in love with people that aren't like me, because left to my own, I can be pessimistic or cynical, or kind of think of the glass half empty. But I love people that are not like me. And so that's HR.
I don't see you that way, just so you know. That's not how I view. That's not how I view you.
That's when people say, "Bring your whole self to work." I'm like, I don't know if you want the whole. I mean, I have such a dark humor and a dark, side of my personality that, I mean, it's more funny than anything else. But I'm one of these people. If you remember the TV show Dexter, when I watched Dexter, I didn't think he went far enough. Like people would watch Dexter and get freaked out, like, oh my God, serial killer killing, bad people. I'm like, yeah, kind of. I mean, makes sense. But again, I kind of hide it well with sarcasm and humor and other things. But no, I over time, I've become more optimistic. I have to admit, I have through life's little journey. I think I've become more, I've chosen more optimistic.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. You've chosen that. I mean, I think that speaks to this rebellious nature that we talk about, right? The choice to be different, the choice to see things differently, the choice to be optimistic through challenge.
I almost got it.
Yeah.
I almost got a tattoo. I say went through a mental breakdown. It's really was sped up through this. I've been it's a form of manic depressive where you stay in mania most of the time. Undiagnosed, untreated, didn't know anything about it. Went on ADHD medicine.
Yeah.
Just basically thinking I had kind of adult attention deficit disorder, and it made me obsessive and like financially obsessive, crazy obsessive. And it was, my wife was like, you got to get off that. Well, not knowing that I should ladder off of it like you do with most types of medicines, I just threw it away. 2 days later, I was, contemplating suicide.
Wow.
So it got me into therapy, it got me into, medicine, it got me into all of this stuff. And through that whole process, it's like I came to realize that optimism is a choice. You choose every day, every situation, everything that's thrown at you, every adversity, every success, whatever. Optimism is a choice. You choose whether or not to be optimistic or not. And so from that moment forward, I basically said, we'll go ahead and choose optimism.
How long ago was that?
2015, April 2015.
I mean, I think it's a really fascinating topic since you have a firsthand experience of the polarity of mental health and success and all these different pieces. It's a topic you and I have talked about in the past in other conversations. It's the goal of mental health right now, and especially with what's happened over the last year and a half in the business world, the life world, for how people are dealing with it. I mean, how are you seeing the role of HR shifting around this topic? Because it is definitely shifting.
It's absolutely shifting in a great way, Derek, and you and I have talked about this. It's the fact that it's not taboo, the fact that you and I could actually openly talk about it, and I could tell you of an experience that I have. It makes me more open to people's stories and for them to tell me kind of where they're at in their journey, and it also makes me more empathetic to other people's situations. So you've got a cousin, you've got a brother, you've got your mom, your dad, somebody that therapy is, I mean, I've said it before, therapy should be mandatory. I mean, it's, you get your driver's license, we test people to get their driver's license. We don't test people to make babies, but that's a different issue.
Right.
But we test people to drive a car, which is fair. But therapy is one of those deals. Not everyone needs someone to talk to. Like in my particular instance, my wife's my best friend, so I have someone to talk to. That wasn't the issue. Mine was brain chemistry, straight up. The chemicals in my brain, they needed to be balanced in a way that I had no idea, and so I needed a pharmacologist, and so I needed a therapist that basically knew the chemistry of the brain and could get me to a place where I was, when you deal with manic depressive, and especially the mania that I was dealing with, which is, again, a kind of a form of mania, manic depressive, where it's called hypomania, where 80% or 90% of your time you're in mania. And the other 10%, 20%, your lows are really low.
Sure.
So you got high highs and low lows. And so what I needed is I need things to be more middle of the road. You still have ups and downs, of course, but not the extreme ups and downs. And so I think what HR has come to realize with COVID is that you've got people all over the world, they're dealing with all kinds of things that they weren't dealing with before.
Right.
And confronted with, their kids are at home. They've got to work. They've still got all these deadlines. They've got all this stuff. And they used to have this nice little separation between work and home, or work and life, and all that's obliterated. And now they've integrated those things. That's great. However, HR is now being pulled into their lives, which is a good thing. I mean, in a way, you kind of like look at life pre-COVID for HR. It's like, well, they had a life before they came into the office. They had a life after they came in the office. Now we can't unknow that. And so I like the fact that we've been forced to think of work life as more of an integration and not a balance. You'll figure out your own balance, but you'll figure out how to integrate these things. And so I love that we're talking about mental health. I love the fact that we're talking about empathy. We're talking about people's families. Like you and I, prior to hitting record, we were talking about our kids and soccer games and stuff like that. Like that's how we should be talking. Like prior to COVID, we didn't talk like that. It was business. We got into business. Let's get into business. How fast can we get into the business, the project, the thing, the deliverable, the whatever? It's like, you know what? It's better that we're not doing that and taking into account, hey, you know what? This is a human being that we're interacting with, and they've got stuff. And I like it. I think it's a good change for HR. I also think the air's out of the bottle, and we're not going to put the air back in the bottle.
Yeah. So first off, I think I agree with everything you just said, and first off, thank you for sharing so openly on your own personal journey and what the work that you've done and continue to do around your health and your mental health. Kind of tying it back to your earlier comment, you get to see in your role as working in recruiting how the whole conversation of what people are seeking from employers is changing, and how besides the HR side, how people, as they're looking at their career options, are viewing the different perspectives and different offerings and the conversations in these companies that are either happening or not happening at the companies that they're leaving, and going and the companies that they're choosing, back to your point, to spend and invest their time and energy and skills, right? And I believe, and you and I talked about this, that the relationship between employer and employee family is shifting. I say that intentionally, employee family, because it is not just a matter of human capital as, hey, this person works for me. There's a whole other thing that's forming here. Talk to me a little bit about that and how you're seeing that shift in conversations with both sides of the talent continuum.
Well, I think on the acquisition side, I think, first of all, talent has choices, especially on the knowledge workers, knowledge economy. They have choices. And so now they're sussing out not just where they fit skills, capabilities, maybe even culture-wise, but where they can be embraced more for who they are, and also for the ecosystem, and like you said, their family, where they fit. And so some of that comes down to benefits, right? Some of it perks and things like that, comp, of course, and the job itself. And some of it's, they want to know, they're asking questions like, how'd your company handle COVID? How do they handle remote work? How do y'all discuss difficult things, social justice, DEI, mental health? Like, candidates are asking these questions for recruiters, not just after employment. Like, maybe you and I would have, you get the job, then you get onboarded, and 2 years later you have a question. No, these are folks who are savvier. And I also think that society has pushed us in this way, in the right way of saying, you know what, let's make sure that this is the right fit for that whole you and that ecosystem. Like I said, your family, you're thinking about that experience and how it relates to both people that are ambitious are going to be ambitious. Check.
Right.
Got it. Stated and covered. But there's going to be ambitious, and there's also going to be thinking about their family. So now the ambition is not just their, moving up their ladder. It's also what can they do to make it a better experience for their family? And family being defined as however you want it. It's your kids, it's your mom and dad, it's your life partner, however you want to define that. But the people are coming to the table and asking more probative and pointed questions about transparency, communication, actions, And I think it's a great thing. It's a great opportunity. I think on one level, it's a great opportunity for recruiters and HR to step up and actually do the things that we know that we need to attract talent and to do the right things for the business. It's also a great opportunity for HR to COVID's been a wonderful opportunity outside of, all the negative things health wise. It's been a silver lining for HR to step up and show that work can get done differently. Workplace, workforce, those can be different constructs. Like we were kind of stuck in a rut pre-COVID of thinking of these things in really, really narrow ways. That's all obliterated. And so I think it's a great opportunity for HR to think differently.
So back to this point about rebels again, for that exact reason, and how is HR and HR leadership now able to effectively challenge, quote unquote, the status quo? How are they challenging executive teams to operate business differently?
Great question. Great question. It comes down to two words: radical flexibility. And if they don't embrace radical flexibility in how they treat talent, they're not going to attract, engage, or retain talent. So their message to the executives and to the board, the rest of the executives and to the board is real simple. Do you want talent or not? And if you don't, great, we can dictate. We'll set up here's the corporate headquarters, you need to be in here 9 to 5, work has to happen this very certain way, etc. You'll get talent, you won't get top talent.
Right.
Because top talent now wants to work a certain way. And again, they might want to go to the office. What they really want is what's been uncovered, and again, air is now out of the bottle, is flexibility. They want to be able to, if I want to go to the office, I got, 3 kids under the age of 5. I need to go to the office. Fantastic. You want to have a sales meeting or a retreat or something like that. They want that flexibility of going to an office. They also want the flexibility of never going to the office.
Right.
And so HR leaders, the ones that are I would say the most radical, are the ones that have embraced this early. This concept. They got on board with this. I'm thinking of Paul Wolf, the chief people officer at Indeed, is a great example of this. Got on board with this real quick. Like, okay, things changed. Here's how we have to interact with talent. And he'd do a better job of telling you his story, but he just pushed an agenda to the executives and to the board and said, you tell me. You want to go through a bunch of attrition? You want to go have a hard time recruiting? You want to, you want all your top team and top players to leave? Okay, let's keep treating them the same way. It's a surefire way to get the exact same outcome. Is these people are going to be harder to attract, engage, and retain. Yeah.
So 2 questions. One, and they're related, but the first is, how is that responsibility then shifting back to the HR team, right? So they get that. The implementation of this around systems and SOPs is a lot more work for them, right? So how are you seeing that being handled? It's a double-edged sword, right? Yes, we have to be flexible. The executive team says, sure, be flexible. Now you got to own it, right? So how are you seeing that being handled?
So it's the bifurcation of where standards have been your best friend, and where standards have been your constraint. So think of something as benign as like interviews, right? The best way to do interviews today and reduce bias in interviewing is to do standardized interviews. So you and I are up for the same gig, or add 4 or 5 other people. We're all up for the same gig. We go through the exact same interview. That reduces a lot of bias. Doesn't eliminate bias. It reduces bias because we go through the exact same experience. But in that scenario, you love text. You're not really a phone call guy. You're not really an email guy. You're not really a WhatsApp guy. You just like text messaging. And I'm an email person. I've just always been a zero inbox person. I love email. You've texted me. If I don't know you, I'm probably not responding. Okay. So you can personalize certain aspects of this to meet talent where they are, which is what you should do. and then you can standardize things that you need to. So now what HR and recruiting, how their jobs got harder is they have to then figure out where they need to standardize and where they need to do things that are highly personalized all the way to that talent. And again, it's not so much treating people differently, it's understanding that there's certain nuances about each talented person that you need to meet them where they are. And that's okay. And you can still onboard, you can still do compliance, you can still do all of the things that make HR. You can still do all that stuff, and you will do all that stuff. But you have to add a layer of how do you personalize the experience for every single employee, every single talented person that you have, which is every employee.
Completely agree. I mean, I think that it speaks to a whole other category, I believe. And I mean, we've heard a lot about this in tech in particular with data science, but I mean, data science for individual and personalization of employees and benefits and perks and culture is going to be an explosion in the next
100%.
decade, right?
I couldn't agree more. It's not just an explosion, a wonderful revolution. Right. As has been referred to by John Lewis, good trouble. This is actually good. This is a good thing. This is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. And because now benefits aren't cookie cutter. They're not the same benefits that work for you and your family aren't the same benefits that work for me and my family. So, okay, what do we do? How do we create something that's unique or standardized for everyone so that everyone has at least a baseline? And then things that make sense for each family.
Right. I love it. And so that then kind of transitions nicely back to my second question, which is, so let's move out of the knowledge economy for a second, right? And into what I'll call the restaurant and hospitality industry and the area where they're struggling to recruit and retain talent altogether. Like, how are you seeing that world shifting in this environment?
I tried to order a pizza, this is 2 weeks ago now. I tried to order a pizza at Domino's for my kids, and it wouldn't work. Like, I was going through the desktop, and it just kept working. So I logged out, and then I logged back in, and it said, "No one in your area is delivering." And I'm like, first of all, you have one job: deliver pizzas. This is what they do. This is what Domino's does. I mean, I know they have a whole food menu other than pizza. I get that, but this is what they do, and they don't have enough talent to deliver pizzas. That's when you know. So it worked out. I went and picked up the pizzas. But
did you get tipped? Did you get a tip for picking up your own pizza?
No. But it was fascinating because I haven't picked up a pizza in a decade. So, but what's interesting is, again, what's funny is even pre-election, and this is probably multiple elections, we've talked about the hourly wage, the work, what is a working wage, and what's the poverty line, and all of these types of things conceptually. And it doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum in terms of politics, but the idea that we're going to have to increase the minimum wage seemed like such a foreign concept. Like, oh my God, how can we do it? Businesses just aren't going to be able to make it, this, that, and the other. All that stuff is thrown out.
Right.
It is ceased to be even a discussion point because, now, like CVS just announced this past week, they're moving, I think it's CVS or Walgreens. One of them announced to minimum $15 an hour. And like for a lot of those folks, that's a huge raise, right? Like, it's life changing, but it's a huge raise. And you know what? That might help them keep talent. It might not. So I think what's interesting to me about the high volume or hourly market is you have to be even more aggressive. Like before, college talent, high school talent, early stage career talent, you get all these applications and you can just dictate, like, we had 1,000 people apply for that job, we'll just cherry pick and pay them whatever the hell we want. Gone. Gone, just overnight, gone. And so now those recruiters and those HR teams that have lived under that kind of a world or worldview of talent, that's all been demolished. They have to now start treating that talent probably just as special as corporates treat their talent. They've got to start thinking about, continuous education or continuing education. They've got to start thinking about benefits. People that are working part-time, they're going to college and they're working 20, 25 hours at, Pizza Hut or whatever. You can't just think of them as, transitory. You can't think of them as replaceable parts. Like, okay, Sally's not there, Jimmy's there. Great. Jimmy's not there, Teddy's there. Teddy's not there, Sandy's there. Like that model, that ideology and philosophy gone. And if you're still thinking that way, you're just going to get took, and your business is just going to suffer. So the sooner that you move your mentality over to how can we make it a great experience? It's almost like now that entire world of high volume and hourly now has to think like corporates, and they have to think different. They have to start thinking about how do we onboard them better? How do we have better training? How do we give them better perks? How do we retain this talent, which they've never really thought. Even take luxury brands out of it for just a second, but outside of luxury brands in the high volume market, they've never really thought about retention. They've always thought of employee turnover or churn as it's just normal. Like, okay, 19% of our workforce turns over. It's like, you don't have enough people applying to the job to have 19% turnover.
Right.
Can't think like that anymore.
Well, I'll share a fascinating, you may know this already, but so two things, interesting data points I've seen in the last 2 weeks. So one, a couple weeks ago, I went to In-N-Out Burger, right? I don't go there often, but I went the other day and I saw on the sign that hiring $18 minimum, $18 an hour minimum wage was what they were offering, which I was like, really? I mean, that's next level, right? And the gas station, the Circle K down the street from my house, is offering retention bonuses. You stay for 30 days, you get paid. You get paid. I mean, like, it's incredible. I mean, like, and it talks about, ask about our benefits package.
It's a long time coming. Let's be honest. I grew up, and you grew up in the same thing. I work, our first several jobs were hourly, and Pizza Hut and Captain D's and Walmart and all this type of stuff. And you were treated as a movable piece. And I think businesses now more than ever, especially in high volume and hourly, but all businesses have recognized, we can't think of movable pieces. They're not just movable pieces. And if we think of them like that, we're going to be in constant turmoil and churn. I mean, when I was in Florida over the summer for vacation, there's a restaurant down there, Pizza by the Sea. It's a great pizza place. Got a lot of pizza stories, evidently. But during one of the weeks we were there, they were shut down Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Now, this is like the height of their season, vacation season. And 3 days of the week, they were just closed. They didn't have enough talent to open up the shop. And just think of the lost revenue. I mean, again, you're making most of your revenue in 3 or 4 months of the year, and 3 days out of that, of just when I was there, you lost revenue. So how impactful was that? Now you got to start thinking about talent differently. You can't, if you're thinking like, oh, this is just a pendulum, it's going to move backwards, and we'll go back to business as usual. Stop. You're just going to hurt yourself with that thinking.
It's challenging though, right? Because it's at the other side, because I agree with everything you said. At the other side, I look at it from the business owner standpoint, right? The business that they've been affected over the last year and a half through all this, right? I mean, like, it's a really challenging moment, right? Where like you have some companies, many companies that did not make it, and they, and now they need to. What are they going to do? And at the same time, you got the other side, which is you need to be more aggressive and more more risk averse and double down on those investments, right? It's really a big you studied Charles Darwin like I did, and not to throw too much of it into natural selection, but some of this is about the forest. And in the forest, there's trees that grow and then they die, and then new trees
develop. Those are businesses.
Correct.
And so, one of the things I would say is, first of all, I don't want harm to come to anybody, no matter what the business is, but you got to be constantly rethinking your business model and
Yeah.
and I think that puts the onus on leadership and ownership to always be kind of reinventing themselves. And so they shouldn't have been blindsided by some of this. They should have
Yeah.
been thinking about this beforehand, so that they didn't have to go from $7 an hour to $18 an hour.
Correct. They should have been yeah, exactly. Right.
That's what the business should have been doing to get ahead of it, so they weren't blindsided. Now, hindsight can be, we're being 2020 with this, but it's true. Your business should always be evolving. You should always be thinking about talent, because that's what makes up the business. It isn't technology. It isn't research and development. It isn't some widget that you manufacture. It's talent.
Yeah.
And so what do you do to, again, retain, engage and attract that talent? You should always be rethinking that and getting ahead of that. And I think companies that do that and that are progressive and are always thinking a step ahead are the ones that win.
100% agree with that. So what do you see in terms of this evolution of talent? What are the new jobs that are going to be, or the new roles that are going to be created and existing right now? As you look at these companies that are innovating and are, changing their business models proactively as a result of this. Because I think, and back to HR tech, right?
Mm-hmm.
We heard for a long time, we can't go remote. We can't do virtual meetings. We saw how quickly, literally 2 weeks, people went completely, they could switch on. So
turns out we could.
About digital transformation for 10 years, right? It was a decade-long digital transformation. All of a sudden, we got done in 2 weeks, right? So
it's amazing how that happened too.
Yeah, right.
I think the interesting thing that HR has to confront, businesses confront the same thing, is workplace, hybrid workplace, and hybrid workforce. Yeah. So hybrid workplace, we've talked a little bit about what does that mean in terms of flexibility, and meeting talent where they want to work and how they want to work, and being more outcome based. And with high volume, it's similar. Yeah, you're a bank teller, but you don't have to work Monday through Friday those hours. You can start thinking of that differently, and the business can think of that differently. Maybe you work 25 hours. We pay you like you're full time, and you go to school for 15 of those hours. And so we just think of the talent differently. So even corporate and hourly can still think of the workplace in a different way. The workforce is where the real interesting thing is happening. Is you've now got this confluence of seasonal, part-time, full-time, gig, freelance, nearshore, offshore, outsource. You've got all these different things of ways of thinking about how talent wants to work. And that's all they are. Is these are little labels. That really, what it gets down to is, how does the talent want to work? How does the talent want to interact with your corporation? And some of that comes down to the shift. They just want one shift a week. That's how the talent wants. Now, you've got to then be able to interact with that talent, meet them where they are. Go, you know what, Billy, we want you for one. If all you can give us is one shift, fantastic. Yeah. That's great. Like, instead of it being a false construct of how we work with talent and how we work with talent in the future, talent's going to decide. Talent's always had the power. It's just now they get to assert that power. Yeah.
Well, there's a company I know actually here in Phoenix that does. It's called Quick. That's exactly what they're doing for the hospitality industry. Right. It's basically a job marketplace.
Yeah. It's
a restaurant, hotel.
It's a unique spelling of Quick. I can't remember what they spell it.
QWICK.
Yeah. Right. And what I love about that model is, again, it lets the talent work the way they want, and then the company gets what they want. Customers get what they want. Like, everybody wins. There's nothing wrong with this. Right. It's allowing the flexibility to then say, Sandy only wanted to work Tuesday and Wednesday night because she's got her kids and she's got all these other things on these other nights. So instead of forcing her to then work on Friday where she's unhappy, probably not doing a great job with customers, or she's got to trade the shift, or there's got to be some type of conflicts. Like, we don't need any of that. Like, so I like quick, I like models like that help talent find a better way to work, but also HR and recruiters, it finds them a better way to work with talent.
Love it, man. Well, I got to ask this question too for the audience.
Sure.
Since you're on the video. Tell us a little bit about your art, right? Tell us about your creativity. Tell us about this background.
Well, that's probably some of the fits of mania on display. So my kids found one of my paintings and up in the attic and asked my wife, what is this? And my wife was like, well, your dad was a practicing artist for 20 something years. So then they brought down all my paintings and they asked my parents, my brothers, they got all my paintings back. And then they filled my office with all of my artwork. So it's a bit egocentric, but it's a museum to me. It's literally works of art that I've created through the years. And some of this stuff I haven't seen, like that painting there, I painted when I was 17.
Wow.
I haven't seen that painting in 20 years, at least. And so it's nice because I get to see stuff that I've created.
Yeah.
But now I'm having even more intellectual conversations with my kids about like,
awesome.
What was I trying to achieve?
Well, I was going to just ask that. Did it bring up all sorts of interesting memories for you, as like bringing points of time back?
Oh yeah, and some of them I can discuss with my kids at this age, and some of them I can't at this age. Sure. I'll have to wait until they're a little bit older to really kind of take them into some of those stories. But it's fun because I have an undergraduate degree in art history. So when somebody wants to talk about art, I can actually talk about art. And so it's nice when my kids are like, this painting right here is actually a rendition of Jasper John's Three Flags. It's a famous painting of his that I redid and made it into kind of a stained glass motif. And so it's kind of interesting because now I can talk to them on a different level, like both 11 and 15-year-old, I can talk to them on a different level about art, which is great. And then again, with Zoom and everything else, everyone's got some type of background, which I love.
Yeah.
Like I hope we don't lose this. I was telling somebody the other day, like our local newscast, when we were going through the heart of COVID, everyone was doing their stuff. The weather person was doing their stuff at home, like in their living room. The sports person was doing their stuff in their garage. Like you got to see like the background and all of this stuff. None of it was highly produced. It was just, I love that. And I love being on calls with people and they're like, you see a book, it's like, I've read that book. I know that book. I've read that. I hated it, but I've read that book. I love that. And I hope we don't lose that. Like yours, I've told you before, I see Thrive there right behind you. And I'm like, I love that because it gets to the heart of talent, finding out where someone thrives. And that's a recruiting initiative, but it's a continuum through HR. It's like, where does that person thrive? Where can they best thrive? And it's always trying to, like a puzzle piece. Yeah. We're trying to figure out where do they thrive. So I love it, but thanks. Yeah, these are all paintings, works of art that, some of them are more recent. Some of them I've created more recent than 20 years ago, but still surrounded by it.
Well, William, it's always a pleasure talking with you. I appreciate you sharing a glimmer into your life and into your thinking and to your heart, and
100%.
Blessing our audience with some words of wisdom and things that you're seeing in the world of talent and HR.
It's fascinating times. And I'll leave your audience with another really interesting nugget. The SEC, not the football conference, but the
Securities Exchange Commission.
Yeah, security. Every time I say SEC, because I went to Alabama, every time I say SEC, I have to clarify for folks. I'm like, no, I'm not talking about Alabama football.
Roll Tide. Right?
Roll damn Tide. It's interesting because they just came out with this bit where they've made people analytics data mandatory. So now for publicly traded, right? So what's interesting about this is now CEOs, of course, when you do an earnings call, it's fairly formulaic. It's profits, loss, it's assets, it's liabilities, it's earnings, and it's about what we did in the last quarter, what we foresee is the next quarter. They've added people analytics data to those things now. Yeah. So now the CEO has to disclose people analytics data, which is fascinating because they can't lie. because just if they lie about profit and loss, they can get sued by shareholders. So now there's this whole opportunity around diversity and inclusion and equity that is absolutely fascinating that we need to seize upon. The SEC is making it's for publics, and I get that. But if it's for publics, it's going to happen to everybody at one point or another. And so the cool thing is it's an opportunity for HR to then go, we now get to dig into our people data. We need to render it and report it, and then we need to get better at it. So it's a fantastic opportunity, just like
I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, no worries. No worries.
My son saying hi. You actually may have seen a post earlier this week on social about this topic, that culture is an asset, right? That they actually are measuring now. This is the exact point. You can measure culture as an asset and a value driver or a reducer.
That's right. That's right. And guess what? If it's important to the SEC, now it's going to be important to a lot of CFOs and a lot of CEOs, and a lot of board members, and a lot of shareholders. That's coming to a theater near you. So
powerful stuff.
I love it. I think it's a great opportunity. I don't look at it and go, "Oh, scary." We should be terrified. No, actually, this is a wonderful opportunity for us to reconcile some of our past. And if we've got pay inequities, not if, where we have pay inequities in our organization, let's get rid of them. Great opportunity.
Love it. Well, I love your optimism. So thank you for sharing it. And
it's a
I
choice.
look forward to more conversations with you. Exactly. That's an important distinction. So William, thank you. And thank you for joining us, Rebels of the Heart. Till next time.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you for having me.